Everybody awake? Yeah, hanging in there. Okay, good. All right, so as Charlie said, my name is Brienne Rowell. I am a speech pathologist in the adult voice clinic, which is part of the Voice and Swallow Clinic at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I have been at that clinic, it'll be almost 3 years next month, and then prior to that I was at the Vanderbilt Voice Center for about 6.5 years. I do encourage, like after this, of course, we're going to try to do a little hands-on and interactive, but come up and introduce yourself to me if I've seen your name around online or otherwise. I try to follow one of the Facebook forums, so some of you might see my name there as well. So, welcome to all of you. Show of hands, how many of you are just Adductor SD? I know we talked earlier, not categorizing, but let me just get an idea. How many of you are mixed abductor and adductor? Okay. How many have a tremor component? Okay. Yeah, that seems like about the percentages I interact with in my clinic. So I wanted to start out with, oh good Lord, she had such a great talk. You'll probably hear some very loose, similar themes with regard to kind of how we think about something before we kind of jump right into it. But I wanted to start with how, one of the reasons I have that question up there, which some of you may be wondering, because isn't that why you're all in this workshop, is kind of think about how you would answer that question. And how you answer that question does tell us something about what you believe about the process of voice therapy. Okay? In the literature, there is a line of research looking at things that whether or not you believe about what you believe behavioral techniques will do for you, whether or not they'll be effective. Some of that is called buy-in, and the buy-in that you have to a technique or a procedure, and how confident you are in that procedure has an impact on the outcome. Okay? So I'm not going to say today that everyone with SD would be successful with voice therapy, all right? But I think there's potential for everyone to try new things with their voice and see what they would discover. So I'd like you to kind of be, open-minded, think critically, ask questions, but most importantly, just kind of explore your voice. Okay? So when we think about SD and voice therapy, why don't most people with SD do therapy? Maybe some of us never really thought of it in that way. Not that they don't do it, maybe they weren't offered it, maybe they didn't know it was available, maybe it didn't work. Probably one of the biggest reasons too is there's very little published data on the effectiveness from therapy. And clinically, the people I've worked with, people Laura's worked with, I'm sure, and other clinicians have found that there is really variable benefit, sometimes to the point of no benefit, depending on the person. I think it also has to do with how many people have had, or at least for a time, success with Botox or other medical interventions. And those dramatic results that people get, understandably, if they make your voices functional, great, do what works. That is completely part of the picture. And of course, as we heard this morning, there's lots of surgical management techniques that can be helpful for some. The other consideration is not all speech pathologists are voice specialists. Okay, we are, I think, in an age where, and I'm a little biased up front, but I think specialties have a really great role in getting to the depth of what we need to know about certain things. And so, while I've never walked into a stroke clinic or Laura does, or a CGI clinic, I think my kind of depth of voice knowledge is something that I would be more comfortable saying to a patient that's looking to try, rather than maybe someone who doesn't see voice patients as often. And for us too, therapy can be really useful as a diagnostic tool. So if a team is questioning, is there SD present? Is it MTD? Is it something else going on? When that person comes in, I'm listening the second they open their mouths and watching their body and seeing what's going on to try to tease out, is there something that needs to be worked up further here? And sometimes, of course, the therapist can help determine that. It's not always on the day of evaluation that you get all the answers. But again, I think that goes back to exploring the voice. That's okay. There's lots of things that can come out over time. And so most of you have probably gone through the words and phrases and sentences that are used to help differentiate what types of SD might be occurring. So this is just to highlight that, of course, therapy can be done in conjunction with Botox. It can, again, does it work or not? Curious a little bit out. In a study in 1995 and then one more recently, around 2011, suggested that doing therapy in conjunction with Botox may yield longer duration of good voice. There's nothing yet to say it has a direct effect on the side effect period, so that's that weakened recti and kind of aspiration swallowing component. There's also the thought that maybe it would, during the good voice period, help with just management of any other sequelae. Are there days where when the voice, even in a good Botox voice, are just struggling? And so what kind of potential does that have? We're hoping to have more studies that demonstrate if therapy techniques can help the positive effect of Botox. Would that help the good effects last longer? Maybe. One of the studies I'm currently running is considering that possibility. So you guys have gotten a lot of anatomy and physiology, it sounds like, today, and so these are just to remind that, of course, the larynx is the primary organ of voicing. It has a lot of other jobs too, kind of a juncture for swallowing and breathing and Valsalva maneuver, that feeling bearing down. So lots of interrelated and highly sensitive tasks. So, as you guys probably know, the muscles affected in adductor spasmodic dysphonia are primarily the muscles of the vocal folds themselves, sometimes some joint muscles that also help with closing, and these are occurring on voiced sounds, right? So those of you with mixed are aware that, yes, you also have issues with some voiceless sounds, right? But this is more, we're going to focus on the voiced sound component, or when the vocal cords are coming together and meeting. So what are the three systems we need to make sound? We need the power, right? The power of the air coming from the lungs with the support from the diaphragmatic muscle. We need the vocal folds themselves coming together. So, of course, the image in both of those, the vocal cords are just sitting at rest in the rest position, but during adduction, they would be coming together to vibrate. And then we need the resonator, the thing that allows the voice to travel through the mouth, the nose, and we can shape it with our teeth and tongue and lips. And so each of these aspects has a key role in not only how we sound, but maybe what we can manipulate when we're doing a therapy task. There's also the muscles extrinsic or external to the larynx, directly attached to the larynx, as well as larger muscles, kind of larger to go out into the neck, and the neck support. What role is that playing? Many of my patients hear me say I have a lot of, I'm a very hands-on person, and so I have, I think, a lot of explanations surrounding just muscular tension in general, right, throughout the neck, the upper body, and even throughout the entire skeletal system. Then we look at muscles underneath the tongue, up into the jaw, up into the forehead, and then that's the temporalis, right into the side of the head. All these other muscles that can also play a role, I think, negatively if they are out of balance or hold some tension. I don't think it's on today, but that's fine. You guys have seen a lot of pictures of vocal cords vibrating. Has everybody in this room seen their vocal cords, by the way? Yeah. Great. Okay, good. Okay. So, back to just some conceptualizing about does therapy work. Again, I'm going to take the stance of yes and no, all right, with caveats, and of course open to discussion. So I think yes, when we're talking about addressing the layers of compensation, right? What else has come about as you've been first noticing the changes come on with the voice? If it's been years that you've been struggling to talk about any meaningful treatments, what are all the things that are going on physically that your body is just trying to get through the day to get your voice out? Are you trying to control the breaks? Are you letting the breaks happen? I think that everyone can improve their overall vocal technique regardless of the underlying issue. That doesn't necessarily mean your voice will end up 100% or sounding 100%, because none of us have that on a day-to-day basis. But that doesn't mean that you can't have that kind of growth and exploration of this instrument to some degree. I don't think that therapy alone would work, just because the majority of, as we've learned, and most people believe in the medical and speech pathology community, that this is, as we've talked about, a neurologic condition. So while the therapy doesn't make the spasms disappear, those overactive muscles, remember, too much normal movement, right? We talked, hopefully they kind of touched on, like, there's lack of inhibition potentially in the cortex. And so if there's too much normal movement, that's still going to be the signal coming from the brain down into that end organ. But how can we help kind of work with that and not resist against it? And that's some of the ideas behind some of the therapy that we try. I thought it was interesting from looking at it. It was a single case, but in a group that studies a lot of different types of dystonia. They talk about how the lack of inhibition itself in other processes is not necessarily abnormal, but in this, obviously, yes, it is. We want that spasm to not be so intense. We don't want that to interrupt what we're doing. But I kind of like to also think is there is, just as much as there might be a bad day of spasms, there's also opportunities to reset the voice when you're not having a spasm. Maybe when you notice, oh, I went to talk and it came out smooth a couple times. So if you look at kind of the course of your whole day, yeah, 90% of the day might be spasms, but what can you harness with that 10%? Maybe the next time it's a 20%, part of your day that you can really take and say, you know what, I'm going to do some vocalizing, and that feels easy, that feels good, and that's awesome when you take that with you. Does that make sense? You're kind of flipping the role of like how you feel your voice kind of reacts each day, or what you can kind of build upon. So we'll talk about things for adductor, of course, but I think regardless of type or category or however you want to look at the voice, the strategies themselves can be relieving, I think, of tension, of effort, but it's exhausting to talk, right? It's exhausting to talk, plus on top of it, as was alluded to earlier, to have to think of those strategies every time you open your mouth, mentally exhausting. So where do we kind of find a happy medium that they can be there maybe situationally, maybe again for something that you use just when you are having a good voice moment. And today I won't be touching on a lot of the direct tremor component. There are some therapy paradigms that are created for folks with just pure tremor, but I'm going to focus more just kind of overall and not in major detail. Okay. This is one of my favorite cards that one of my former support group members made. She handed out to everyone she met. Which grade so I think again, if someone's able to let that communication interaction be on an equal footing, right, and let everybody kind of know what's up. Maybe some people are at that stage. But what I'm getting at here is that I think it's important to consider the mind-body connection in a voice disorder or not. When you have something that you're struggling with, like SD, the mental and emotional components that go into that cannot be ignored. And so, at least for me, I'm often talking to my patients, about that aspect and where they are. I think it might have been Wendy who mentioned that, are you in a grieving stage still? Right? And those stages don't go in order, right? So you might be, in anger about it. You might be in acceptance about it. Maybe in a stage of empowerment about it. But that's okay to acknowledge and even come into your therapy session with that. Okay, we're here to listen and then do kind of what we can with that component. Are you feeling stuck with it? Are you feeling curious about it? Are you feeling hopeless about it? And like I said, that varies day to day. Those mental scripts alone, I think, tell a lot about yourself, your voice, and either encourage you to seek out resources like attending today, try things, additional avenues, whether it be counseling, meditation, yoga, mindfulness-based techniques, something that kind of gets to that whole well-being component, or just sharing your own story, right? And whatever that story is to whoever, and whatever audience you have, that may be something that empowers you and helps you bring changes to your life. Maybe it's made you realize that you are a better listener than you thought, or maybe it's allowed you to do an activity that you never thought you could do. So how could you look at that and make it kind of something new or exciting, or just acknowledge, what, this is where I'm at today. Not a great day, and what can we talk about with it? And having kind of that, I kind of think about like a vulnerability, right? To be able to say some of those things too. All right, so when we get back to the physicality of it, breath support. How many of you do breathing exercises ever? All right, cool. Here we go. So breath support is something that gets a lot of talk, and actually I don't spend a whole lot of time on it in some of my therapy sessions, just because I feel like there's a really important need to coordinate it with the actual act of voicing, but I think it provides a lot of other benefits as well. So I'd like you all to stand up, please, for those who are able. Let's just go through kind of a few things that I just want you to kind of notice. This is all just about observation right now, just kind of noticing your breath, okay? And comfortable, feet distance, not standing too stiff, all right? Kind of shaking it out. And I want you to just start with a big inhale and then just a sigh out. No voice, just nice, easy sigh. Good, do it again. Good. Now one hand up here, one hand about the level of the diaphragm, okay? If you're down on that torso abs, that's fine too. All right, do that big breath again. Notice the hands. If there's movement, and let it out. If there's not, if one area moves more than the other, maybe the top moves more than the bottom. And out. Keep the hands there. Now try to make your exhale a little longer. Options for that include breathing into your nose, blowing out through pursed lips. Notice how that extends your exhale, hopefully. Other options include breathing into the nose and out on an S. Again, just noticing the hand movement if it's there. Okay. Any observations anyone wants to throw out? Did your hands not move, for example? Anybody have some breath holders in the room? No, good, okay, nobody's passing out, all right. What about who felt their hand move more up top? Oh, who felt their hand move more down low? Wow, you guys are just 5 gold stars, all right. So, if you think about kind of where this action of how the lungs work, both technically have movement. But the majority of movement, yes, you're going to feel from below, garnering that support as you fill up, and then allowing the exhale to be the thing that you can start to entrain to be a little bit more, well, longer in length, and then also more relaxing. Okay, a lot of us spend time kind of constantly breathing in, and so where can we kind of stretch that out? And so that's the S and the pursed lips are 2 ways to just get at that pretty quickly and do it in a very focused way. Okay, so I kind of like that just from a general sense of am I breathing? All right. The other nice thing about it is once you're doing that, it's very natural and it should be very passive activity. You can start kind of scanning. What's the body doing? Am I still standing too straight? I saw somebody raise the arms, release the tension up top. So noticing where there's other things going on in the body. Are you kind of letting your knees be soft, or the feet just and toes kind of wiggling? Those are the kind of things you can connect to that are separate from this whole little instrument, okay? That really can bring some groundedness. And sometimes the energy of the voice, once these muscles fatigue, you gotta pull it from somewhere else, okay? And that may mean other parts of the body. So that's one of my go-to breathing exercises. The other ones kind of have to do with including motion with them a little bit more. So we've done kind of the feeling up top and the bottom. The middle icon kind of depicts that idea of extending your exhale. Okay, whether you do this even just for a minute at a time throughout your day, but just getting into more of extended exhale. And then I just want you guys, we're going to go through kind of somewhat similar movements as the bottom pictures just depict. And same idea. You're just noticing where the breath lands or fills or feels kind of thing. All right, so finding a little bit more space. I'm just going to raise the arms above the head. Good. Okay, I want you to take a big breath in here. Just notice what's different about this kind of breath. Does it naturally go up top? Maybe. Let it out. Keeping the arms and the shoulders kind of relaxed. Okay, again, big breath in. You feel it more in the front of the body, the back of the body, let it out. Good. Now shifting yourself just from your torso up. Okay, you're not going to like pop your hips out, all right? You're going to just let your body shift. You can go to your left first, okay? There you go. Or you can come. Good. All right. Now, think of the breath now being sent down that other side of the body. Again, doesn't mean it stops it from going into the front upper chest, okay, and lower. And let it out. But see if you can almost feel like you're feeling almost down even to the hips. Good, and let it out. Back to center. sensation that you normally feel when you're sitting, or driving, or slouched. Breathing in, and then back out. And back to center, just let the arms flat and sway a little bit. Okay. Anybody notice it through their side bodies that time? Yeah, good. Okay, so there's other space, even if it's micro space, kind of like the micro motions that Dr. Tell was referring to earlier, the voice, micro spaces that we can kind of utilize there. Now, this one on the floor, the option is the floor, we're not going to do that. What you can do is that as an alternative, you can practice your hands right behind your tailbone. I prefer people to start kind of here, but certainly if you want to have a little more of a, it's for a chest opener, you can raise the hands up. Just watch that you're not arching your back, okay, or sticking your gut out, okay? So keep everything kind of aligned that way, and then I want you to do a big breath purposely into the chest, okay? Really fill it up, and then let it out. This time, see if you can get more of the action down low on the inhale. It may feel identical, it may feel a little different, that's okay. And then back up into this, really fill up the chest. And you can notice with that, you didn't have to do hopefully much of anything with your arms. You could get a deeper stretch, but you can still open this area. And after a day of everything kind of pulling forward, that can be a nice way, okay, to just kind of awaken the muscular components there, all right? The last one, I really like saying you don't necessarily have to do any like actual arm swing with it. That feels kind of nice. But you're just letting your body twist side to side and do that inhale through the nose, but the exhale on the S. As long as whatever your breath will handle, just keep the twist going, okay? New inhale when you need to, but try to extend the exhale. Just bringing movement through the spine. Still keeping that chest open, right? You're not going to collapse and twist. You're still keeping upright. Good. All right, back to center. Okay. Anybody just feel a little more jazz, a little more weight? All right, sweet. That was actually my trick. Okay. So, so these are some things that I think are important to kind of look at from a how are you starting your day? How are you feeling? Because if you immediately start your day from a tight space, that's likely going to cascade into your speaking voice as well. What are some of the other ways we can get at this, right? How many of you have tried massage or physical therapy, acupuncture, rolfing, all of these different things, hands-on things that are out there, which are really great. I love a lot of those things. So you can do things like massage your larynx. Some people do a very vocal massage. Okay, you're literally finding that cartilage of your larynx right there in your throat. You're massaging around it. You can get a little broader. You can go down the sides of the neck, all the way to the back, little self-massage, okay? The point of these two is just to kind of check in. Ooh, that feels tight today. Oh, no, that feels okay. That's a little sore. Just kind of noticing, all right? The tongue stretch. Literally, you're going to stick your tongue out at me. Keep holding it. Breathe while you're doing it. You may hold this up to 60 seconds. You may start to feel a little tug along the sides. Okay, as that tongue kind of releases a little bit. That's a good one to have. Sticking it out. The hyoid bone refers to a little U-shaped, horseshoe-shaped bone just above your larynx. Sometimes it'd be hard to find because it sits deeper in the tissue, but if you do, you can wiggle it. It's allowed to wiggle. Okay, kind of wiggle it side to side. The thing about it is it kind of acts as a suspensory system. So where it sits above your larynx, it's attached to the muscles that I showed you in that picture below, but it also is attached to the base of the tongue from above. So it kind of has these like resisting forces coming at it from both directions. So you can kind of check in with the hyoid bone, make sure it has some mobility to it, all right? We did some of the chest openers, the side body releases, and the pelvic tilt kind of refers both to the twists that we were doing, but in movement, but then also stationary, that again, you're not one of these people, kind of hips forward, right? Or leaning too far back, that you're kind of neutral with your pelvis too, okay? Just so that everything from the bottom up is aligned, all right? Just some other ideas for just throughout the day, little check-ins or resets, I like to call them, whether if this is you're doing a breathing exercise and trying to kind of reset a little bit, or you're just noticing, wait, where's my posture right now? How am I sitting? Where can I kind of release any tension? And like I said, that might be all the way down to the toes. Like everybody just wiggle their toes right now. Who is cramping their toes? Someone, sure. All right. So even those little things you can kind of look at throughout the day. Look at your breathing pattern. Are you a chest breather, right? You just kind of keep it shallow and up to maybe the sternum level. Are you doing more abdominal diaphragmatic breathing, as they call it, okay? More down low and keeping all this kind of relaxed and quiet. Do a little bit of both, or are you a breath holder? More people are breath holders than they realize. If you're doing something very routine and, okay, why do I have to catch my breath? You didn't realize you were holding on. And so how much, again, over the course of that day, let's say that's just a minuscule part of your day, but every day, a little more, and you're building up that tension. So can you make a shift? And so that's kind of what we're going at for this. Okay, have a seat. Thank you guys. Any questions about those? All right, so these are some other ideas, as I had kind of mentioned, of just alternative things to look at for whole body well-being, right? It's not just, you know, our voices that can stress us out, so whatever else might give it that whole body wellness, I'm a big fan of. All right, let's talk about some things that you maybe do more actively, maybe again without intent, that can create some more tension or trauma, if you will, or strain to the muscles. And so a lot of you probably been told, you know, don't shout, don't holler, you know, don't do this. Yeah, to a point. I mean, that's we all go to our, you know, favorite games or have children, or whatever the case may be, spouses. But I think it's still wise to look at it as a natural part of what voices are capable of, but also what's your limit, you know? And being able to, again, reset. If you say, oh, I've overdone it, I shouted, I talked too much, you know, whatever it was, then reset. Keep in mind this is going to be dependent on how you are already feeling like your voice is that day, and so there might be days where none of this seems feasible. You're like, I don't even want to talk on the phone today. All right. But if there are things where you did, you know, end up having to push it, this is not necessarily going to make the breaks worse, and I don't mean worse by like, you might hear them more or feel them more. I'm talking about just kind of all the compensatory stuff that you might be inadvertently doing as a part of this, okay? So thinking about just how much, how loud, how often throughout your day. All right, any questions thus far? All good? What time are we at? I'm not watching the time.
4 o'clock.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go through some tips. Now, these things some of you might have heard of, partially because they come from that model a little bit with this idea of how do we differentiate SD from anything else in the voice world, and there are some kind of known stimuli that make SD better or worse temporarily. Interestingly, it also gets to fluency. Some people with disfluencies can do certain things with their speech, and you know, temporarily the disfluencies disappear. You know, the most, I'd say, recent movie that came out about that was King's Speech. You guys remember to see that one? So kind of on that idea, you know, put headphones on, mask with noise, and suddenly you can speak a little more fluently. So these are kind of where some of these come from. But you know, I wanted to like put all the options potentially out there for you guys because you never know. Right? Maybe you try one, maybe you try all. Maybe some days one is your golden ticket to have a phone conversation for a few minutes, or some other days it just is something you can play around with. Okay. So inhalation phonation. This I would say is for extreme cases and very short-term use. I had 2 patients who walked into the clinic already using it. Like they just kind of found their way to it themselves, and they felt really functional with it. Even when we tried to kind of see if they wanted to go back to phonating with the airflow moving out. So inhalation phonation is like you're going to talk as you're breathing air in. So if you've got like you're gasping, can you all go? That's inhalation phonation. Now if you went 1 on that gasp. 1. Yeah. So you can teach yourself, or it'll make you cough. That's another reason. No, it's true. So that's the thing. That's why it's very short term, because you are pulling air in, and that can be irritating for some people. For others, it's just a good way to try to get through a conversation. Okay. So that can be a little trick sometimes. During laughter, I don't know how many of you noticed, like hopefully either your throats feel more open, or of course you're not going to hear a lot of breaks or tremoring during laughter. There aren't many people who are like, you know, laughing the entire time they're talking, obviously, unless you're doing like laughter yoga or something like that. But certainly, I guess taking that chance when you are laughing to really notice that your voice is relaxed, make kind of a mental note, because that is a really good natural vegetative thing we do where SD breaks and tightness are relieved. A yawn sigh, this can be helpful sometimes. It's just to kind of open up things. So I want you with voice this time to try to do a yawn, okay? You're just feeling openness, okay? Or if you wanted to talk like you're still in that yawn, it's the same idea. I'm just holding my throat open, okay? And that's going to be comfort level, right? You may play around with the family, you know, and say, hey guys, like listen to this silly voice, but you yourself are able to just kind of make that mental note and shift. Does this feel better? Does this feel worse? Does it feel silly? Totally okay. Okay, H, onsets. Onsets refer to the onset of sound, okay? And in speech, we have a lot of voiced consonants and all vowels, of course, in the English language. So for adductor, I don't know how many of you have ever tried to just stick an H, okay? An H is just air, right? An H before what you say. Sometimes that can be, at first, very exaggerated, like in therapy, we have people practice a lot of H words and H-based things. But then you can start to morph that into something like, one, hi, how are you? I'm going to the store. See what I mean? You're mixing it up, and it gets shorter and shorter. It's there, but it gets shorter and shorter, so it's maybe not as detectable by the listener, okay? But by that time, hopefully they're listening to what you have to say, not how you're saying it, all right? So especially for those of you who have first names with voiced, or your first and last name, maybe start with voiced consonants, that might be a good little trick as well, okay? This one I put up here because it's similar to some other speech stuff that we work with. You know, this is a trick on that sensory motor system. You change something about the input and the output, and for a while the system shifts as well. So, you know, some people can talk in a different accent, and their voice, you know, gets better. And it's, again, maybe temporary, but it could be something situational that is useful. There is a wonderful woman in the sport group in Nashville, and she loves doing her Swedish accents. She does it a lot of times, and she just kind of gets into the Swedish tone, and her breaks are gone. And she doesn't get Botox, so she likes using it whenever she can. So just something, again, to play around with, okay? And you don't understand all the mechanisms behind it, but they are things that both help therapeutically and diagnostically sometimes as well. High pitch. How many of you have tried to talk like Mickey Mouse? And I mean outside of your Botox side effects. Yeah, okay. So you can try a high pitch. If that muscle, you might remember the name of the muscle from earlier, the pectothyroid, the CT muscle, isn't necessarily affected as far as being spasming during that use, then that's a good trick. Again, might be something that we find maybe women use more than men. But if there is a point where you have to get something across, you can just go up a little bit, okay? For some people, chant speech works. Chant would be like, you know, a monk in a deep, dark monastery, and you want to get into a very monotone space where you're talking like this, and all the sound is very connected, right? It's different than our normal intonational speech, okay? It's a different pattern. That's the reason I put you can change the pitch. So maybe you chant a little higher and you stay here on one single pitch, or you make it a little breath here, and that way you have some of that H in there, okay? Nasality refers to that like lovely Fran Drescher sound. Maybe you go a little more nasal, all right, and you can sound like this for a while, okay? So those are kind of some of the things that you can play with a little bit. Singing, you know, as far as a tool to, a lot of times I ask my patients if they do notice less breaks in singing, and most of them do. And so that's a nice little thing to kind of remember how I was talking about relieve your voice. You know, if during your whole day, the only time you're feeling no breaks is during singing, you go for it. You know, you just sing around the house, because what are you reinforcing with that? Like we learned earlier, right? The brain is getting some sort of aberrant sensory input, and yet if the singing voice is not, you know, eliciting any of those breaks, how are we kind of giving some of that plasticity a chance to kind of work, you know? Sing-song intonation, that can vary. So if you're being really over-exaggerated and sing-song like this, some people find that works. I think that lasts the effect. Lasts a little shorter than just kind of, you know, playing around with some of these other things. But certainly if you want it to be really, you know, inflectional and moving your voice around all the time, again, it's a different mode than the other where you're used to talking. Whisper, I'm sure if not after Botox, some of you have had to try to whisper, but maybe stuck in a whisper. Pros and cons, as you know, you're going to lose volume right away, but certainly the breaks go away, and hopefully the ease returns, right? Some of these are just about ease and not having to strain your voice during the day. Confidential voice is like a permutation of whispers. You're not really whispering like this is true whisper. What you're doing is very soft volume, so it's a little bit like the chant speech with the breathiness, but see, I'm talking just in normal inflection. But it would be like if you're going to tell somebody something in confidence, okay? So again, the breaks may still be present, but are you unloading your literal vocal load to do that? And you may be, which would be wonderful, right? The more you push, the more you resist, the harder it's going to be. So this kind of pulls back on some of those aspects by using different parts of those subsystems, right? The breath, the voice itself, and then how the sound is traveling the resonator. Does that make sense? Okay. So these are things kind of more broad-based that go into, that we use kind of across other speech and language disorders as well. How many of you have had to substitute a different word? Yeah, you got your piles of words now that you just avoid. What are some words that you guys avoid? Just throw them out. Car, okay. What do you say instead? Yeah, okay, all right. Anything else? Any really tough ones that you guys avoid? Yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
Good morning.
Which one do you prefer?
Good morning.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So what are we doing to this process as we're having to kind of constantly navigate if we can change a word in that millisecond before we have to say something. Another option is letting breaks happen. And to what degree is that physically possible sometimes, right? Not resisting against it. And to what degree is that also where you're at both mentally and emotionally with this, right? Are you ready to just be like, this is me, this is what my voice sounds like? I don't know, that's kind of for you to explore. Pacing or tapping, I've tried this with a couple people, and it just kind of depends on the scenario. So pacing would be like if you had your hand or your foot tapping as you're talking, and it does change the rhythm of your voice a little bit. Again, at first it might seem a little awkward depending on who you're talking to and your listener, but you're just trying to get that other motor component into it. So it can be hand tapping, it can be the foot tapping. A lot of times people find it helpful to actually hear the pace of it. Like I haven't found it as successful. People are trying to be more surreptitious, and you're just like tapping your heel or something. Every so often too, over-articulating, especially in background noise. In background noise, we're going to lose a lot of information anyway, but the consonants and the crispness of them can carry through that and cut through that a little better. You may still have breaks, but you are being very purposeful about each sound up here in the mouth. Your voice is still breaking, right? But you're controlling up here. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, all right. Okay, so let's get into a couple things that I wanted you guys to play around with too. Some of the sounds that I have people try therapeutically just to find ease through their throat, hopefully, is things like humming and using sounds like very N-M-based sounds. Those are all nasal sounds in English, okay? Ing is a nasal sound. Meow, 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 kind of sounding again back into that Fran Drescher roll a little bit. I will say I like to give people this option just because you never know what might work. What do you guys what's your guess about what a downside? What's the most obvious thing about this sound? M.
It's in your nose.
It's good. Yes, it is in the nose. Is it voiced or voiceless? Versus just no sound. It's voiced, right? So for adductor SD, don't be dismayed if you're like, hem just doesn't work. I can't do humming. Well, you're adducting your vocal cords to make that sound. Okay, so this is why I encourage people to play with it a little bit. But even right now, I just want to hear all of you just go on a hum. You can make it kind of nasal. Yeah, and if you're doing this, maybe tune out the ear, whether or not you hear a break. Maybe just notice if it feels pretty easy to do. Okay, do it again. Some of you might still feel tightness, or maybe some of you feel a little more openness. Okay, but these can be kind of tailored to that feeling of more openness. That's that sense of, okay, I'm not trying to grab at this sound. I'm not trying to restrict it, okay? The ones I really like more often are airflow based, we call them, and there's a variety of different things that we can do with airflow based. I want you guys to pass around these straws. Let me take one straw, pass it around. So these are things that are getting a really light and easy phonation focused on some sort of either visual or tactile feedback about the airflow, okay? So even if right now instead of a hum, on an F, if you all just hold out an F sound, so just F, you can be S or F, but F preferably, like in fish. It's just air, right? Your voice isn't even on. Now I want you to start your F and change it into a V sound. So turn your voice on. Yeah, let's go a little higher pitch. Try F and then into higher B. Yeah, all you did was go from voice off to voice on, okay? So sometimes even just having those easy transitions into sound, practicing that, can again reinforce that idea that it's not trying to resist against it. So as the straws pass around, we'll get to that. Kazoo buzz is a little bit like kind of that sound, all right? Some people can do, I always have to hold my lips because it gets tense. Some people can do lip trills. All right, since I'm a little silly, you all have to be silly. All right, let's do this together. Try it with me. You can hold your lips if you need to. Well, I know you can do it. All right, there we go. Okay. Sometimes it's not as helpful because the lip tension or the facial tension can be there, but you got to get air behind it, right? You're not going to get much of anything if you don't have the air behind it. You can also stick out your tongues, do little 2-year-old raspberries. Okay? And again, that's releasing some of the tongue tension, but you've got a lot of airflow, right? And what's the one thing that's happening when those vocal cords come together in spasm? Cutting off the air, right? Even just for that split second, and the sound stops, okay? So lip trills, tongue trills. I don't often use those trills, you know, like in the Spanish R, but you can try that. I find it gets too many people's tongue get tense doing it, and I want more of a relaxed the tongue. But you're welcome to try that as well. All right, where do the straws go? They're probably back there. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I want you all to take your straws like you're gonna blow into them. Thank you. And this is kind of the kazoo idea. Ooh, okay. I just want you to blow ooh into the straw. Whatever pitch. Oh, you guys are so good. I love it. All right. Now I want you to just go ooh, up and down. Okay, which feels easier, the single pitch or gliding up and down or both? Yeah, 50-50 kind of hit or miss. Okay, put your hand up at the end. Who feels air at the end of their straw? I hear you all there over here, that's great. Good, okay, who doesn't feel air? You don't have to. Okay, so this is a nice way to just check in that you're even using some airflow, all right? But the mechanism behind the straw is we're actually helping elongate. This is like a giant tube, okay? We're helping elongate this tube, so acoustically, we can play with this part a little bit more, okay? Not have to worry so much about this part. This can also help relieve or bring about ease into the throat, all right? So even that's why I do have you guys do the up and down. Even getting into different parts of your voice. There's parts of your voice you never access maybe anymore, right? So what part of that might just feel easier, okay? So the sound, it sounds smooth and beautiful, the sound might be there some days, maybe other days, it's like breaking at the beginning of each of these, but in the midst of that, you find some ease to it, all right? So let me hear you go back to a single pitch, whatever pitch you want, okay? Check the air. Now I want you to pull, as you do the ooh, we're going to start it again, and you're going to pull it away into the word one, like this. One. Okay. Ooh, nice, strong, good. So if you're keeping that sound on and keeping it continuous, right? Yeah, good. Then you have that moment of just connectivity and smoothness, not a break, but breaking it up. Make sense? All right. The master of ceremonies is here. So what I'm going to wrap it up. So straw can be your best friend, or maybe talking in Mickey Mouse voice can be your best friend. You get to decide. But if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to email me, okay? And then, yes, questions?
Do these things help my voice or just in the moment when I'm trying to say something?
Great question. Do these things help the voice or in the moment when you're trying to say something? I would say both. Okay, and if you're practicing them, then you're helping the voice, and then also getting more kind of prepared as is an athlete preparing for a race. In that event that you can't pull out a straw before you're going to start talking to somebody, perhaps, but you're remembering what it felt like. Doesn't mean you will not have a break, maybe not, right? But at least you kind of set the stage for when your voice feels better. that make sense?
When I went in 10 years ago to see Dr. Brienne, I told him I can talk like Mickey Mouse, you just try.
That's right.
Now, you see, I really been at home because I talk like Mickey Mouse when no one's home.
I think in the way that you are, again, thinking about how the muscular kind of motor sensory system is working, the fact that you're reinforcing a part of your voice that is working very, very well, I think is a good thing. And I think it does serve to relieve some of this extra tension that we bring about just by our regular speaking voices. So it depends on what your goal is, right? And that's really important. Whatever your goal might be, that is the key thing. Like when you come in to see me that I want to know about. Because is it to never talk in Minnie Mouse voice, or is it to situationally find things that might, incorporate that? Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you guys very much.